Well, this is a bittersweet moment for me, and this is the last time that I'll be speaking to you all, and hopefully I'll be seeing you all again. But I need to get right out of the way that I love you all. I'm going to miss you. And I have a lot of people to thank, which I'm not going to do right now, except for thanking my wife, who's been supporting me this whole time during the erratic and strange hours and job duties of a youth pastor. So thank you. Thank you, Allison. When I first preached my first sermon, and here it is, the bulletin from that morning. This is January 24th, 2016. Allison sent me like a web article. First sermon jitters. 10 tips for aspiring preachers. And actually, I opened up my first sermon by telling you about the 10 tips on that list. One of which was start with a story. So that's what I did, and that's what I'm going to do now because I'm a big fan of story. I know it's July, but we're going back to Christmas. This past Christmas, something truly magical happened in my house. So we had these tenants that lived in our basement for a couple years, and they were Ukrainian. And we loved the times when our lives would intersect, and we get to see and experience some of these Ukrainian customs. And at one point, they said to us, around Christmas time, we wondered if we could have a few visitors over. Of course. You should know, they said, it's not a small number. They're all children, and they're going to come sing us a song. Because in Ukraine, what happens around Christmas time? You have a children's choir that goes around house to house, right into your house, and puts on a little show for you. And there's enough Ukrainians in the city at this point that tradition has made its way over to the HRM. And sure enough, the time came and we went down into the basement, and a full Ukrainian children's choir, all dressed in their traditional garb, with a few adult leaders and choir people, and they put on a show right in our basement. And I cannot describe, unless you see a video, which I do have, but not for this morning, what that was like. The call and response, where everyone just knows their part. The carol of the bells, dun, 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 that's Ukrainian, that filling up the sound of our basement. And our Ukrainian tenants kind of singing back and forth, and the whole place being filled with music. And you just think of some of the sorrow and the difficulty, that's behind those words, and the joy that these children were bringing into my house. And all of us were standing there watching this take place in our basement, thinking, how fortunate are we that we get to experience this. And it truly felt like a holy moment. And you have those moments that you can think of when you look back on, and you're experiencing something special. God is there, and somehow the veil between heaven and earth is open just a little bit. Moses had his holy moment. And you know how that story goes. Moses ran away from Egypt because he had killed somebody. And he spent 40 years herding sheep in the desert until he finally went up on a mountain and saw a bush that was on fire but not consumed. And a voice spoke to him from the bush, and he knew that was God. And because he knew he was on holy ground, he took off his shoes. And there God spoke to him and called him. In that moment, heaven and earth overlapped. And there's a poem that reminds me of that moment, which I want to share with you now. It's from the 19th century poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And it goes like this, just one part of it. Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries. Now, certainly I'm not hating on picking berries. It's kind of a thing for me right now. But the point is there, that these holy moments, the moments where heaven touches earth, the moment where God reveals himself to you, they're all over the place. And some people notice it and take off their shoes and recognize they're on holy ground. And other people don't notice it or get distracted. And we're all both of those people, aren't we? We all respond in both those ways. Earth is crammed with heaven. Don't miss it. Holy moments are all around us. Don't miss them. There is a viral video, maybe 10 years ago, an experiment where they took perhaps the world's best violin player and they dressed him up in common clothes and they put him in a subway station. And he took out his $3.5 million violin and he went busking. Perhaps the best classical violin player in the world busking in the subway, just to see how people would respond. Nobody paid him any attention. They just walked on by. He did it for hours. I think only 7 or so people kind of stood by and watched him. One person recognized him from a concert they'd been in the other night, and I think over the course of a couple hours, he made $12. He's right there, but they missed it. Holy moments are all around us. Don't miss them. Now, what does this all have to do with the 7th commandment? Because we're in a series on the 10 commandments. And if you're tracking with us right now, we're at number 7. And if you saw the sermon title, you know what it is. The simplest and most straightforward of the 10 commandments. Don't kill anybody. Or more accurately, do not murder. It's not a verb that means all general sort of killing. It is this specifically taking of life in an illegal way. Don't murder. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you were to use the 10 commandments as a personal checklist for how you're doing as a human being, I mean, it's like, check, I got this one. Pretty straightforward. I think we can all agree. It's wrong. Well, let me tell you. For Moses, who brought these commandments down from the mountain, I bet you none of these commandments hit him like this one. We don't know a lot about Moses' life, but we know one thing. He killed somebody. And that's why he ran away. That was the moment that started it all. How do you think he feels about that? Not great. And imagine Moses is coming down the mountain, and he's having to relay what God has told him. And he gets to number 7, do not murder. That's awkward. And can the people take him seriously at this point? Hard to say. What would it have been like for Moses to tell the people, don't kill anybody? I imagine this is another holy moment for this guy, a soul-searching moment. He knows God is calling the people to a new way of life. But this one, he's got to wrestle with this one personally. God wants to invite not just the people, but him into a new way of life. Put his past behind him, become a new person. I imagine the moment God was up there on the mountain and he heard God say, do not murder. I imagine that was a moment where Moses felt all of his life rushing in on that moment. And he looked at all of his past and he knew God loved him and God was calling him to something new. I imagine he took off his shoes for that one too. But to us, this can actually seem like a strange commandment. I mean, so obvious. It's so obvious. No, it's not. No, it's not. At least not for the Israelites. Remember the context. They've been slaves for 400 years. All they know is death and violence. It's the language their culture spoke. It was the custom of their people, certainly the custom of their oppressors. The ancient world was brutal, especially if you're an oppressed minority slave. And death is the ultimate weapon that the oppressor used to control them. Seeing their own people worked to death or killed by the Egyptians would have probably been an unfortunately commonplace thing for them. And you just know what that does for somebody. I mean, I guess I don't know, but how it would desensitize them and how it would harden their hearts and how it would normalize death and violence for them. And you just wonder if they had this secret dream of somehow taking revenge on their oppressors, let alone when they're actually freed and have the agency to do things and they wonder, now we can finally take revenge. And God says, give up that dream. Move past that one. Give up your old way of life where death and violence are what you feel like you need to resort to. And there's a new path you're walking down. It's called freedom and life. Do not murder. And you may be tempted to see this command as setting some sort of pretty low bar. Like, this is a pretty easy thing for us to pass, especially considering the preceding ones are kind of high bars. Worship God alone, keep the Sabbath, represent God well. And you get to this one, don't murder. You're like, okay, whew, easy. But actually, in context, I believe this is a surprisingly high bar for those people and for us. Because Jesus takes this high bar and famously makes it a little bit higher. In his most famous teaching, the Sermon on the Mount, he starts off by saying this: gut-punching words. You've heard, Jesus says to the people on the mountain, you've heard that it was said to the ancients, to your ancestors, you will not murder. And whoever murders will be guilty by the court. I say to you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be guilty by the court. And whoever calls his brother good for nothing will be guilty by the Sanhedrin. That's like the Supreme Court. Now we're going up a notch. And whoever simply says fool or idiot, they'll be guilty of the fire of Gehenna. So take a look at that, and you see what's happening. Jesus makes it more than just about what you do on the exterior, and he places the responsibility right on each person on the inside. When you thought murder was bad, apparently these other offenses are pretty bad too. Calling someone a name, thinking hateful thoughts about them. In this little riddle, you're going to be taken to essentially the Supreme Court, or worse, the fires of Gehenna, which some people translate as hell, but I don't think that's exactly capturing the point. Because Jesus takes contempt seriously. How you think about other people is extremely important to Jesus. It's not just murder that's the issue. It's all of the small things that come 100 steps before that, which Jesus says, in fact, are not small things. It's not just murder that's the issue. It's the posture of your heart and how you think about other people, how you treat them. It's the narrative you tell yourself about other people, the way you dream about saying that one thing, the way that you act passively aggressively, how it all spills out of your mind and into your actions and ends up devaluing the life of another person. Jesus tells us, do not devalue the life of another by thought, by word, or by deed. And notice the ways that you think about other people, especially the thoughts that in any way lead to devaluing another person, of seeing them somehow less than you, of jockeying for position and status in your mind or in the real world. These thoughts come so easily to us, and they affect the ways we speak and treat people. To Jesus, this is of utmost importance. Not only that we don't devalue people, but that we value them. And the foundation of his teaching is this belief, the next one. Each person is the image of God, infinitely valuable and worthy of respect. This is not a surprise to us, but it is radical nonetheless. This is how Jesus lived his life. And because he believed this, he was so willing to stop what he was doing in any moment and put all of his attention on the poor, or the marginalized, or the destitute. So valuable were they to him that his utmost priority in any moment was to love them and to serve them and to bring them into the new kingdom community he was forming. He saw the value in people. And so if I have to offer a parting message to Grace Chapel, it's see the value in the people around you. And by around you, I mean around you. All people, of course, but particularly those in this community. See the value in them. Know that in each way, the people in this room, or the people in this community, are like that violin player named Joshua Bell, who are of infinite value and worth, and yet all too easily we pass them by. I don't mean that each one of you is incredible in an abstract sense, but in a very real and special sense. And you will discover that if you actually get to know people. It's very easy for a Sunday morning to be a transactional experience and to get fed up with the small talk afterwards, or your mom's taking her time to lead the doors. These people are of infinite value. And I can't tell you how many times I would leave this building after a Sunday service, maybe chatting with somebody, maybe a different person each time, maybe the same person each time. And as I was driving home, I would think to myself, wow, what an amazing person. What an amazing person. And many of you are those people to me. That person is so strong. They're so generous. They're so faithful. They have so much resilience. They're so authentic. Wow. Often, we only have these thoughts when someone dies. Nothing like a funeral to make us appreciate somebody. Let's not wait until their funeral to see and call out the value in somebody and to treat them like they're valuable. Stop waiting for people to die. Notice the beauty and the value of these people. Talk about holy moments. Earth's crammed with heaven. I want to say each person or each encounter with a person is a holy moment not to be missed. Take off your shoes and stay a while. Every encounter you have with somebody is a holy moment not to be missed, because somehow the image of God is present in that person. I'm not just making this up. Jesus said, when you serve the poor especially, you're serving me. What does it take for you to see Christ in somebody else? Jesus was a master at seeing each encounter with somebody else as a holy moment. He sees time with people, time with you, as the most precious thing in the world. And he wants us to think of each other that way too. The time with our brothers and sisters as so, so precious and important. But how do we cultivate that lens? How do we actually begin to intentionally see each other for the value that they are, instead of just passing by or not making eye contact? Jesus had advice for that too. And he said it starts with flowers and birds. This is actually I hadn't thought about it, very appropriate. The backdrop. We got flowers and butterflies. We'll have to count for the birds. Later on in the sermon, Jesus says, look at the flowers, look at the birds, and when you look at them, see them as signs of God's abundant generosity. These things that you might normally not pay attention to, now these are the things to pay attention to, because in them, God is trying to tell you something. God is invisible, but his generosity is visible through 1 billion invisible things. And we can train ourselves to think that way too, to allow certain things to be triggers to our imagination, to prompt us to see the value in other people. And I don't do this perfectly, but I feel like when I make an effort to make eye contact with somebody, it allows me to see their humanity and how precious they are. Or when I'm able to share a laugh or a meal with somebody, suddenly something clicks in a way that it hasn't before, where you see them as special, precious, and valuable people. And quite frankly, another big one for me is flowers. On my first day working at Grace Chapel, which was August 1st, 2015, so it's been 10 years, 2 days, I walked home from here, and I walked back to our apartment. I'd walk to work that day. And we were living on Carrington Place, which is just a 20-minute walk. And I saw some flowers. And I picked them, and I brought them home. I tied them up with a little stem. And I brought them home to Allison as a way to say, thank you for starting this journey with me, because it's probably going to be quite the road, quite the journey. And I have them right here. Here they are. But 90% of the flowers are now missing, but you can see my feeble attempt to tie them with another stem. So this is what I picked on my first day of work here. We kept them, we framed them. It was over our bed for a while. Then it got kind of weird looking. Put them on a shelf, forget about it periodically. But anytime I see them, it's a reminder of Jesus' instructions about flowers and birds. And when you see them, think about God's love for you and for his people and for his abundant generosity. God loves you so much that God lost his life and went through death to pull us through to the other side. And how does that relate to the seventh commandment, huh? There's a lot there. Do not murder. Wow. Because God loves us, we are to love each other. Because of the love that we show to others, the way that we show that other people are valuable to us, it makes an eternal difference. Now, this is something that I heard from Carmen by way of Allison. And something that's interesting in the past number of years here is that foster children have become like a regular presence here. You know what I mean? It's 5 or 6 families that at some point or another have taken in a foster kid for a short time or a long time. And that's a beautiful thing, and I hope it continues to grow. But what I heard from Carmen by way of Allison is that if you're able, even for just a short time, to show a child love and security and safety, then they can hold on to that experience for the rest of their life, especially if perhaps they have not experienced that before. You can imagine that's likely the case for a lot of kids in foster care. They have not come from a place of love and security, but if you're able to give them that experience, even for just a short time, when they grow up, they can access that experience as an adult through therapeutic tools. Do you understand? Even if that doesn't change their life in that moment, you're giving the child something they can access later on, because now they know what it's like to be valued, and that's going to stick in their system forever. The small ways that you show love to other people make a difference for the rest of their life, and you might likely never know it. So again, a parting message to Grace Chapel: see the value in the people around you and treat them like they're valuable. Because as Stacy said in her video a couple weeks ago when I spoke about forgiveness, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story that is mostly hidden from you. Mostly hidden behind our shyness and our small talk and our unwillingness to believe that someone else is actually interested in our life. So know that if you've never heard someone's story, it's still there, the pain and the joy, and treat them with the reverent respect that they deserve. Everybody has a story, and I have to say that one of the greatest privileges, if not the greatest privilege, of being a youth pastor here for me was that sometimes I got to be a big part in other people's stories. Or even I just got to witness some stunning behind-the-scenes moments into people's lives. And when I look back, here are some of the things that I think of. I think of the amazing kids at Halifax West that came to faith through Alpha, that developed a new sense of self, that resolutely marched through difficulties like pregnancies, like loss of a family member, like the loss and discovery of our community. I think of the grumpy, argumentative kids who it was very easy for me to write off, but it turns out they wouldn't miss alpha for the world, and for which I developed a very deep affection for. I think of the group of Muslim teens that I became so close to that we were able to share stories and inside jokes around a table at Smitty's at the end of the year, and asked me to sign their yearbook. I think of a girl named Miriam, who in 2017 I was tutoring her at the library, perhaps weekly, as she was finishing up her schooling, and I helped her with chemistry maybe a dozen times, and I was with her in the library the moment she got the email from Dalhousie saying she'd been accepted to nursing school, and in the library she got up on the table and danced. And then 4 years later, we're in the hospital with a 1-day-old baby, and who walks into our room? So I don't know if you remember me, but you helped me with my chemistry in high school. And I'm a nurse now, and she cared for us. These are the moments I'll never forget. I think of some of the amazing students that I've met through the youth group here. Kids who go through really hard things. I remember a kid who came to basketball camps, 9 or 10 years old, but immediately finds a resonance with some of the people he meets, not coming from a good, easy background, but he finds a home here, who finds a home in God, only for his father to die, and for the community to rally around him. I officiated the funeral, and you get to be parts of people's lives in these really tender places. I think of the exchange students from Germany or Brazil. They come here for just a short season of life, but this becomes a pivotal part of their experience of Canada. And they're sent back home with gifts and cards and just a heart full of love because of the people that they met here. I think of the kids that bottle up their thoughts or their feelings or their emotions and then finally feel free and safe to share them with other people, to finally feel known. That's a powerful thing. I think of the kids who learn how to hear God's voice after being convinced God doesn't speak to me. I think of the kids who use their gifts to minister to us and to enrich our lives through things like Christmas Eve, Good Friday. I think of summer students who face their fears because they have to, it's their job, and discover their leadership ability and who they are and what they're capable of. I think of a girl like Hannah, a new Canadian who, out of compassion for other new Canadians who were struggling with the same things that she was struggling with, launched a peer tutoring program for new Canadians, which continues to this day, 8 years later, apart from her and apart from me. Amazing. I think of the kids who find peace with each other and reconcile after hurt and division tears them apart. I think of the kids who realize that life is bigger than themselves and make it a habit to serve our community here, primarily our children, so we don't even see them at Sunday school week after week. There's a lot out there right now. I think of the dozens of kids who committed their Friday afternoons for at least a year and a half to study the Bible in Swiss Chalet, $3 plates of fries. Because Jesus continued to walk right off the pages and into their lives. I think of the new Canadians who risked guaranteed embarrassment when they step onto the oval wearing a pair of skates for the first time. And I think of the kids who, frankly, I wrote off completely because I thought, they're so hard-hearted, they're unreachable. And years later, they reach out to me out of nowhere, and a whole conversation and friendship continues from there. Listen, there's so much of heaven in the people around you. So, parting message to my friends. See the value in the people around you and treat them like they're valuable. Everybody has a story, never write people off, because each encounter you have with someone is a holy moment not to be missed. So take off your shoes and stay a while. Amen.